Welcome to the Biz Bash podcast, where we make biz strategy a piece of cake. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Cami, but you might know us better as Eliza Ann Calligraphy and Cami Monet. We want to help you, our fellow stationers, artists, and calligraphers, confidently build a profitable and personality-driven creative biz.
We're here to share our honest-to-goodness advice and actionable strategies for ambitious artists.
So put on your party hat, quit being a procrastinator gator, and let's get this party started.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Biz Birthday Bash podcast. I am very, very excited to introduce you guys to Jena Holliday today. And I have been kind of tracking her down to get her on the podcast for a hot second. I think I had followed up a couple times on email because you're just a busy woman. And obviously you have littles. You've been illustrating a children's book. But I was like persistent because I was like, I'm going to get this girl on the podcast and we're going to do this thing. So Jena is with us this morning and I am going to read her bio real quick before we get started with all of our questions. So Jena is a full-time artist, writer, entrepreneur, and storyteller. She's the creator and owner of Spoonful of Faith Illustration and Design Studio. With just a bit of faith, she walked away from her mainstream marketing job to embrace her passion for art. What started as a hobby eventually evolved into a full-time commitment of spreading kindness and hope through her artwork and words. That commitment blossomed into a blog and a shop aptly named Spoonful of Faith, and has thus become not only a successful business, but a cultural beacon. Jena has received great recognition from her local community. She has received 2 Artist Grant Awards from the Minnesota State Art Board in 2019 and 2021, as well as an award from the Minnesota Regional Arts Council in 2019 to further her career in art and storytelling. She wants her journey and her illustrations to motivate others, especially women, to face fear and find their voice in this world. Jena's debut author-illustrated book, A Spoonful of Faith, releases with HarperCollins in the winter of 2022. She and her husband, Adrian, love finding laughs in the everyday and are grateful parents to their 2 children. So, welcome to the show. You made it.
Oh my gosh. We sent you the really long bio, didn't we?
Yeah, you did, but it's great because it does give us so much insight. But people are always like, that feels really weird to just like sit here and listen to you like read about me, you know? So
thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you and share, and talk. And I'm excited. So
yeah, it's really great that you're willing to share your time with us because we have so many people in our community that ask about illustration a lot. Like they're thinking about maybe illustrating a children's book or they're dipping their toes kind of in that field. We cater to a lot of different artists, but I would say like stationers, watercolor artists, illustrators, designers are kind of top of the list.
Sure.
And occasionally we'll get like a jeweler in there, something else too. So I love it that we have this artist community, but we have never had anyone on the show specifically to talk about illustration.
Oh,
and
man.
So I know. So you're a first, which is very
exciting.
Yes, exactly. So tell us, like in your own words, obviously you started off with a career in marketing and you ended up here. So I would love to hear a little bit about like that journey from you specifically. And yeah, a little more of like the heartfelt, like Jena version.
Sure. I mean, I went to school for marketing. I just thought marketing was the most creative side of business. And so I was like, well, when I was younger, in like middle school, I was actually kind of discouraged by one of my art teachers to not pursue art because she was like, well, I don't know that you'll make money doing art. Maybe you should go into business and then maybe you can do something creatively there. And yeah, so I just kind of like started down that path of going into marketing instead because I was like, well, it's fun and there's more creative things on that side of business. So after I graduated college, I went actually into merchandising. So I have a very interesting like background. So before I actually even got like my first marketing job, I worked in merchandising and buying for a skincare and beauty products.
Okay.
So I had a lot of background in like selling. The company that I worked for was like an online and TV like shopping channel. And so
Okay.
like it was crazy because a lot of the stuff that I learned about like selling on TV in like a very quick way translated over into like digital marketing and that kind of stuff. So I worked in merchandising for a while. Then I moved over into digital marketing and did a lot more with like digital advertising and
Yeah.
Facebook ads and social media ads and that kind of stuff. And I was good at it, and it paid the bills, and it pays good money. It did, it really did. But I just came to a place where I really wasn't fulfilled in it. And I don't know that all of your work has to be fulfilling, but it was to a point where like I had all these other desires of things I wanted to do. And I just felt like I really like a pull to start kind of testing the waters in those things. Let's see, 2014, I had my daughter. I got pregnant the year before. And when I found out that I was pregnant, I kind of had a huge shift in my life, just with my like personal walk of faith. And then also with like becoming a mom. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. My whole life, flipped upside down, changed in so many different ways. But at that point, I kind of adopted this idea that like I couldn't really walk forward and tell my daughter that she could be anything and like dream big and like go after whatever if I wasn't doing those things myself. So I challenged myself to kind of like start walking in that direction. And I started to share my work, and I actually had a lot of friends that were moms that wanted to like buy illustrations and pictures from me. People would ask me to draw their kids and like their families and all that. So I actually started a lot of my illustration work with doing commission and custom portraits. And then I got into kind of like a burnout there. Just like and that wasn't fulfilling either. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing what I like to do, but initially the idea was like make money. And then it started to change and say, I'm like, yeah, I want to do what I want to do. Or what I love to do, but it's not really just all about that. It has to be something that I'm actually passionate about creating and putting into the world. So at first, it was a side hustle and a side hobby, and I was still working that marketing job. But then about 2 years into it, there was enough promise, I would say, or potential that, and I was pregnant with my second child. So I was pregnant then with my son. And I was about to go on maternity leave, and I was like, I think this is it. I think this is the time to like take the jump. And everyone was like,
girl,
what?
Why?
Like, you're about to have another baby. Do you understand? Like, this is not the time, And I was just like, but I'm already going to be off of work. So like, maybe I can, not thinking about time clearly, but just like, I'm like, well, if it works, if things keep like flowing, then I don't know that I'll come back. And so I did it. And I won't say that I didn't have any income because I was married at the time, and my husband, we lived on his income. So, but it was tough. I mean, it was tough for the first like 2 years. And then there was a lot of groundwork that had to be done. Right. And so things just began to flourish after that. And initially I started Spoonful of Faith as just a blog and a way to share the illustrations that I was creating. And then it kind of turned into this other thing, this design studio, and has been so much more. So that's kind of my story of how it all began.
Yeah. And I'm so curious too, like about the blog aspect of it, because I think a lot of times we just go to Instagram and we're like, I'm going to post here. So when you were putting things on your blog, there's something beautiful about that. It's on your platform. It's on your site linked with your name. And I think it's a little easier to share. Did you have that linked up with a newsletter? Like, how were you notifying people when you had a new blog post? Because I love that idea.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, this was now, 8 years ago? So blogs were a lot big. I mean, they're still really big now, but like at that time, Instagram and social media wasn't what it is today. I mean, at all. So sharing blogs was kind of what everyone did on social media. You'd share a link to your blogs, people could click and read.
Yep.
And so I would do it that way. Also like newsletters. And then as things did shift on social media, I would usually like share like a blurb, with a picture on like Instagram, and then tell people they could read more on my blog. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I did it. But we used to have like link ups. I mean, there's all types of things back in the day for blogs and
Yeah.
sharing links. So
It's crazy how the landscape has changed so much in 10 years.
I know.
Even since my time. So I would have been like entering university in like the fall of 2011. So like
Okay.
a decade ago, which is like
I know.
weird to
It's
say.
crazy to think
Gosh, like
about.
I was a
Yep.
freshman in college a decade ago.
Yep.
And I remember, like, for example, like the QR codes, that they were trying to make that a thing.
Yeah.
And it like didn't become a thing 10 years ago. It didn't become a thing until like COVID, right? When everyone's like doing the menus. I was like, this was before its time.
Yeah.
But you had a lot of those, a lot of people doing their blog posts. Like I definitely had a blog that people were reading. And I think we're coming full circle a little bit, because I think people have kind of gotten burnt out, kind of like you said, of the Instagram culture and like the rat race that social media can be. People are seeking out people's newsletters again for a way to feel connected. And so do you continue to post things on your blog anymore? Do those posts still exist? Like, what does that look like for you now?
Oh my gosh. So this is like a really sad story, because I lost like a ton of content from my blog like years ago.
Jena, no.
I know. I know. So it's crazy. I had this old blog called Imperfectly Human, and everything from there is saved. But when I moved over to Spoonful of Faith, I mean, I had written for like a couple of years, and I was like trying to set up this SEO thing myself, and I like totally like I thought I was just taking that part off, and I totally got rid of tons of blog posts. So I don't have them. They're just, living in people's hearts and minds from years ago. But I do still write on my blog, not as often as I used to. But that's actually something that that's like a goal of mine to change this year, is to show up there more. So if you are interested, make sure you follow, because I will be writing more this year.
I am definitely interested. So yeah, I've really started I like getting things to my email, to be honest. I like being able to sign up for somebody's newsletter. I'm getting more into Substack too. That's kind of like a different newsletter avenue, but I like it when somebody's stuff appears in my inbox, because that's nice for me. That's how I like to start my morning, actually. I'm not much of like a morning routine person, but if I do one thing consistently, it's check my email, and I read the emails and the newsletters coming through from people that I love.
Yeah.
It's really valuable. So okay.
Yeah, I have some fun. Like I follow some like writers that I love, that I don't care. Like anytime they send an email, I'm reading that whole thing. Like, what I mean? Like I'm like, ooh, what are they writing about?
It's like addicting. I stop everything.
Yeah, it is. I'm the same way. So I definitely agree with you that it's like coming full circle again.
Yeah. And because our email inboxes are one of the few things in our lives without an algorithm, because otherwise we would lose everything. People would be freaking out, because they would be like, I can't find like the bill for my power company. Where the frick did you guys put it? And so it's kind of like untouchable in a way.
That's
it's
so
like
true. Oh my
locked
gosh,
into like the chronological grid, unlike everything else.
That is so true. I love that.
Okay. Have you always had like you've always had that creative element of your brain, it feels like, of your heart feels the tug towards that? Did you notice that even like growing up as a kid, that element of creativity?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my parents really like encourage us to like create. Like if we come up with an idea of something we wanted, they'd be like, go try. Like they never really discouraged us and told us we couldn't do things, unless it was like dangerous or something. But for the most part, it was like, if you can make it happen, you can probably have it. So that really just opened our minds to create and make all types of stuff. And I think that's why, that I've always been creative, or always tapped into that side of me no matter what I'm doing, even if I wasn't working, specifically in illustration and art.
Yeah.
It was problem solving. It was coming up with solutions. It was, coming up with ideas that could serve and help other people in whatever way or capacity it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's really great. I'm glad that your parents were encouraging you even when that art teacher was like, don't do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So at least they like broke the noise. And it's funny how we remember those things so clearly. Like teachers have such a big influence.
Oh,
And
they do.
like my softball coach had a big influence over me. He like told me a jack of all trades is like an ace of none. He didn't like that I was doing softball and theater. And I was like, well, I'm not quitting like the other things that I love. But it stuck with me forever.
Yeah.
It's so annoying.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Back of your head.
Okay, I'd like to ask a little bit about like your medium of choice. So kind of how you're doing your illustrations. And then, of course, I think the topic of kind of like finding your style is important. So like how did you realize this over the years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think right now I do a lot of digital illustration. So I work on my iPad. I use an app called Procreate and the Apple Pen. But if I'm not doing digital illustration, I like watercolor and gouache. That's kind of like what I like to play in. Right now I just play mostly there, but I do like to take textures sometimes and bring them into digital. And I kind of like to mix media a lot.
Yeah.
So, it might start out hand sketched, and then I might do digital and then I might add a texture or something to it. So like, I like to play between mediums. And then I can't remember what the other question was. Sorry.
Yeah. No, just kind of like finding your style.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's weird to say that you like find your style because I think it's your voice. I think it's your personality. I think it's your original ideas and thought and how you express that through your work. So I think at first, when you're starting out in anything new, you try to listen to everyone because you want to do everything perfectly and you like want to make sure that you did it right. And it's like, what is right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, you're like, oh, I don't want to do it wrong, so I got to make sure I do it right. And you just start to pick up other people's influences. But I think it's really important to it's okay to use others as inspiration, even to study how other people work, because there's really great things you can get out of that. But I also think it's really important to like turn off everything and start to like pull things from within you. So like, for example, I think this is really good practice to do that. I took this like illustrating children's book classes a couple years ago, and we would have to do these prompts of like making things. So it was just like very random. Like, we want you to illustrate hats on Monday.
Okay.
And so like naturally you just go to do a hat that you've always seen or drawn, but you're supposed to fill the page with all different types of hats. And so we would go and like look at start looking at pictures of hats and things, and you'd have to draw it in your own way, And so the more that I started doing that, I really loved that, because it helped me to kind of get out of my head of like, I can't draw this, I can't draw dogs, or I can't draw, flowers or whatever. And instead start to just draw it in my own way. And then the more I do it, I kind of start to see my take or style or approach to it. So I really think that when you start to see someone's style evolve, it's because they're starting to really trust what they have to offer and bring to that idea.
Yeah.
And you're seeing them within it. So that's kind of how I think about finding like your style or your voice.
Yep. It's like years of accumulation of practice and hours of doing your art. And that's why it's like, that's the biggest problem with copying, really, is it's like, well, you don't really understand where that came from. That wasn't just something I sat down and did one day. That was a part of me that has evolved over several years and is like an essence of who I am, essentially. Yeah, that exercise, I love that. I absolutely love that, of taking simple day-to-day items and just
Yes.
draw it. Just draw it like the way, or illustrate it the way you would, the way that you want to.
Hmm.
It's really, really smart. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about kind of like your day-to-day in terms of, at least in terms of the projects you're doing now. So for the kind of work that you're doing now, is it mainly commissions and illustration projects, excuse me, or are you selling products as well? Like, what does your business model look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's got multiple income streams. I
Mhm.
do have a shop and I sell products directly to consumers. I also take on commission projects, but not like I don't take on a lot of commission projects. Um, the type of projects I usually take on are either publishing projects where a publisher might ask for me to come and do a book cover or be an illustrator on a book project or something like that. And that's probably more of the work that I'll likely continue to do.
Mhm.
And then sometimes I do projects more on marketing campaigns for companies. They'll ask for an illustrator to kind of help bring to life the idea or image of what they're trying to create. I get a lot of those though through actually social media, like influencer stuff. So because people will see me online and I have a decent sized following, they'll reach out for, social media, like type of content or whatever. And I usually try to turn those into commissions where I'll say, it's a great idea, but my audience loves art. So like, let's create something together. And so that's the kind of like commission work that I would do outside of like my normal commission, working with like a company. But then I would say outside of that, I do licensing. So I have a few products that my artwork is licensed on, and it's sold through major retailers. So I have like a planner collection that launched last year through the Happy Planner, and that's available in retail stores like Target and Joann's and Michael's. And then I have
Wow.
a couple of journals where the designs were licensed, and those are available in Target stores. And then on top of that, I have a children's book that comes out on February 15th. I think this will air after that. But yeah, so I have a children's book that it's coming out too, and will likely do more children's book work in the future too, is what I love to do. So that's kind of a little bit of what I'm doing. Last year, I started to kind of dabble in doing murals. So I have some experience with that. I have one that I'm actually planning and working on right now, which will be fun. And that's just like, I love doing that. It's not really like my normal thing to do, but I really love it because it makes me get away from all the digital stuff and just paint. So
Yeah.
it really disconnects me. And I love that. It just takes me to a different place. So that's a little of like how, so my hand's in a few things. There's a few income streams of how things
Yeah.
come in. Yeah.
Which is always good. And I think important because, as we've all learned the past 2 years, things can be so unpredictable. And so
Yes.
having your eggs in one basket, it can be, yeah, it can be difficult if things change rapidly. I mean, I was mainly doing wedding invitations when COVID hit, and my entire world was just like
Oh gosh, yes.
completely like upside down.
I
So
bet.
many of us like in that industry. Okay, for licensing stuff, I'm curious, how are companies finding you? And is it just something that you've built relationships over time, or they're reaching out because they find your website or social?
I think a lot of work has come through social and just I think like being consistent and putting like my work out there for so many years pays off because then when people do find you, they see a plethora of work and a history of like that you're serious about whatever you're doing. So I think that accounts for it. I also think word of mouth is huge.
Mhm.
Treat people well, do good work, put out good work. It will come back to you. It always does. It's insane how it happens. I get so much work from people that referred me
Wow,
from other
amazing.
projects. So or a friend told me, or, whatever. Someone mentioned you, I get a lot of work that way. And then I would say, yeah, I think those are the huge areas for me for sure. I don't pitch as often as I think I should in my brain, but I'm always like, I should do that more.
Yeah.
I generally don't cold pitch to anyone. I like to get a relationship with somebody before. Or at least use if I'm going to pitch to a brand, I'm going to be somebody that uses the product, that loves the brand, that can come up with something really cool that we can do together. I think it's important if you're going to pitch to go into it with an idea and know, not just hey, I'd love to work with you. Let me know what you think. This is my work. As much as that does work sometimes, I think it's smart to come into it and telling them this is what I love about your brand. I would love to do something specifically in this area because this works with my brand. Let's talk. But I don't do that as much. I have done it in the past, but I do get a lot of work kind of from people seeing my work. So yeah, I don't know. I'm it's kind of happened.
Yeah, but it's not it's not coming out of thin air by any means. You said, you've been consistent over the years. You have built your brand over the years. I think it's easy for people to think oh, I just have to post a couple times, or I just have to start a website. It takes so long. You have to put the work in, and then you get that traction where things, like you said, come back to you with the referrals, and people just forget about word of mouth. I feel like that's how everyone used to have to run a business. What did you do before the internet existed, right?
I know.
Word of mouth.
I know. It's insane to me because when I tell people that, they're always oh, they never think of it. But truly, the relationships that I've built, even working on small projects, have turned into other opportunities. So, yeah.
It starts with the seed.
It does. It really does.
Tell me about the name Spoonful of Faith. It's clearly important to you because it's both your business name and your book name. And so I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I think the name is kind of like a nickname for me, honestly, because I started this whole journey with a leap of faith. That name, Spoonful of Faith, actually kind of fell into my heart. And I believe that it was through my own relationship with God. But I think it really just fell in my heart one day and it wouldn't leave. And I was I told my mom and my sisters, I don't know, I think I want to name, I want to start I had been drawing at that time. I had just started illustrating, and I wasn't really sharing it with anyone outside of my family because I don't know, it felt scary and new. And also I was I don't know if I'm good, it was I didn't know
it's deeply personal. Starting something new. So
I shared the name with my mom and my sister, and they were oh my gosh, it's so cute, we love it, you should do it. And just kind of stuck. It was always a reminder to me to have faith and to just keep going, and that you need a lot of it, just need a little bit for the next day, right? For the next day. And so that's kind of how I lived, those first couple of years of doing illustration. And it's just really turned into a testament to who I am and what I stand for. And so I think that's how it translated into what it is today, and also the name of my children's book that's coming out. So yeah.
No, I love that so much. I also definitely am a person of faith, so I felt I identified with that so much of just that bit every day that continues to keep you going. And what a huge testament to every day that you've had on this journey, it's just a little faith,
I know,
every day.
Even now, I feel I've come so far, but there's always gonna be more or something else that you're gonna be working towards, or that you're gonna need that little jolt to keep going no matter what. It doesn't matter. So I still to this day, it's just a part of who I am for sure.
That's great. I love it when people's business names have like such a special meaning to them. It just
Yeah.
adds a whole nother like level to it. And thank you for sharing your heart with that one.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so you're publishing your first book, A Spoonful of Faith. It's coming out on February 15th, which is a week from the day we're recording. So it's
Yes. Oh
very
my God.
exciting. This
Yes.
doesn't, yeah. So when y'all are listening to this is dropping near the end of March. So her book will be live at that point. So you said you are publishing with a publisher,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that process, as well as did you ever consider self-publishing, or was this like the route you knew you wanted to go from the beginning? And just a little bit of like what that looked like for you on the back end.
Sure. So in my case, this is like a really crazy story.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm excited.
So I'm publishing my book with HarperCollins,
Yeah.
which is one of the main, like a huge publisher. And they actually reached out to me and had asked if I ever thought of publishing a book. And so then I'm like, well, yeah, let's do it. So in my case, it was a little different than a normal route to publishing. But now I am actually, I have like a book agent and I'm like working on a proposal for another book.
Okay.
And so a couple of things. When I first started illustrating, like in the first couple of years, I actually connected with a small local publishing house that helps people that self-publish books. And we did a lot of work together. I did a lot of book covers for them and I illustrated some children's books with them. And so I definitely think that there's like, just especially nowadays with the power of social media and like the internet, like self-publishing, there's so many ways that you can have a very successful book self-publishing. And I've seen it. In my case, it wasn't that I didn't want to self-publish my book. It was just that I didn't know that I wanted to do children's books. I really wasn't sure. I had done a lot of work for other people and I was just kind of like, I don't know, when you do a lot of work in one area, sometimes it's just hard to see yourself in that area because you're just like, it's just always work. So it actually kind of took me getting away from working with a lot of publishing projects for me to even really start to like to draw and do that other, children's books and even for myself. So once I started working with HarperCollins on my book and started like, okay, what would this book look like? And like, what, how would we like make this happen? I started kind of dreaming again and playing again with the idea of it. And as I worked through that book, I started to get excited about creating children's books. So now I'm kind of like, oh, I would love to do a series. But at first I didn't really want to. So I think like, that's why I never thought of self-publishing because I wasn't really interested in book publishing for myself.
Yes.
I was 100% okay with being the paid author artist on something.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. I was 100% okay with that. But like I said, I've literally walked through the self-publishing journey with so many people because people have asked me to illustrate things for them. And I would say that, honestly, I would say get a mentor, get somebody that has been through the process that can help you and that has good resources for where you should get your books printed, etc. Because there's a lot in that part. Usually as the artist, I come in at the end and I, bring life to the words. So, there's a lot that I do more on the printing side of things to help them make sure everything gets in. It's usually a mess. It's always a mess. And it's just because people don't know because they've never done it before. And it's just a whole new thing. And so I have to explain a lot of things. And that's honestly one of the reasons why I did stop kind of working with people that were self-publishing because there was a huge learning curve.
Yes.
And I would say there's some really cool companies out there that help people that are self-publishing. Now they do charge you because they do help with getting your books, distribution for them. And I think like there's just different routes you can go and work with somebody that will help you get your book done and do everything right. Or you could do it on your own with Google and your WordPad and you can make it happen. but
I love that.
there's just either way, books are a lot of work. And I think some people don't understand that. I just get so many inquiries, like literally, like every day I get inquiries from people like, I wrote this book. I want to write this book. I want to publish this book. And I think we all have really cool messages and things inside to share. But just like being an entrepreneur, it's not for everyone. And it is a lot of work, and it does take a lot of grit, and it does take a lot of faith to keep going and to get it done. So I think that's honestly like my perspective on books and self-publishing. And I don't know if that helped anybody, but I hope it does.
It does help, because I think honestly the biggest thing I'm hearing from you is that having a publisher is, first of all, built-in knowledge, because they know what they're doing and what the process is. And second of all, accountability, because you have somebody that's like, all right, here's the deadlines that we have to meet. There's someone kind of like keeping you in line a little bit, which like when you self-publish, you have to be like very self-motivated, very on top of it. Like you've got to have like the drive to push yourself. And sometimes it's okay having like the boogeyman over your shoulder a bit, kind of like nudging you along, right? Like, like, okay, like the publisher is like pushing me to get this done, or they know what needs to happen next. Sounds like you could probably do like a course or something on self-publishing.
Seriously. I did actually self-publish a coloring book a few years ago, but it was on my own time and it was through my own shop. And then I like, from there, people wanted it, and I was like, okay. So, I mean, you can totally just do it your way too. I'm all about doing it your way.
Yeah.
But if you're like, you know, a lot of people want to work with a publisher. And in that case, if you are looking to do that, it comes with, you know, writing a proposal and, you know, trying to work with an agent and trying to get your book in front of the right people. And that's a lot of work too. Like either way, it is a lot of work. But I think there's some people that have really, you know, great platforms, and they have a good influence and audience to pull from that will buy like anything they put out. So like they can sell tons of copy without the help of, you know, a publisher. But like you said, a publisher brings they have so much knowledge, they have experience that you just can't, like, you can't pay for that. You can't get that just anywhere, you know? So I think it's like, which route do you want to go? I mean, like,
I know I've definitely done some research on that too, to try to like understand kind of like the pros and cons of both. Because I've always wanted to be able to write a book, but then I'm like, like what you said, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so much work. And so is anything in life. Isn't that just the worst?
Right? I think another thing that I just didn't think about, what I was just thinking when you were talking is, you know, there is a freedom with self-publishing, right? It's like you get to do what you want to do. It's awesome. But there is a knowledge that comes with working with the publisher. They know the industry and they know what's going to work. So, so yeah, I mean, like you said, pros and cons on both sides.
Yeah. Pull back the curtain for us a little bit, and can you share how much time has gone into this? Like days and hours of illustration? Like,
oh man, I don't know if I can break it down. I mean, we've been working on this book for 2 years.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So, and we finished the artwork last year, and that was like, I literally had to push the deadline back a couple of times just because, you know, it was like we were finishing this in the midst of COVID, like in a pandemic. It was just like, I can't work right now, you know, like I'm mentally not there.
Yeah.
So that was also a toll on, you know, just getting it done. But yeah, 2 years in the making. There are obviously like fast track books that come out, like they sign somebody and it's out in 6 months.
Right.
Generally the book's already written. There's a lot of stuff already done. Illustration, it's usually a year or so.
Okay.
Yeah. So just because of the amount of artwork that has to be done and created for it. Yeah.
Ooh, it like gives me like my like anxiety. Like
and most books take that long. Like even like, Yeah, like most books, I mean, other than like huge authors that write like
all the time, right?
most
And they're
books
like,
take that long to get out into the
right.
world.
Yeah, if like George R. R. Martin was like today, he was like, I want my next Game of Thrones book tomorrow. Everyone would be
Yep.
like, done.
Yep. It'd already be selling on pre-order.
He'd be like, it's not coming out for 5 more years, and people
Right.
would like already be buying it.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that is definitely like the reality of it is like all good things take time, right?
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
whether we like to admit that or not, it's going to be so surreal for you to be able to walk into
I
maybe like a
know.
Barnes and Noble or something where your book is. I'm going to go find a copy.
Yes, go find it. Oh my gosh, I know. The week it comes out, I'm just gonna go everywhere and see if I can find it. So
Yeah. Do you think you'll go on do children's authors do little book tours or things like
they
that?
do, but right
Okay.
now it's just like no one's
Hard.
doing anything, and especially with kids.
Yep.
So they're a lot of bookstores are halting on in-person events. So we
Okay.
are doing some virtual things, but it's not the same, but we're trying to make it work.
I know. Well, I'll be in my local Barnes and Noble at some point finding it. So I'll send you a
Yes.
picture and I'll be
Please
like, I'm
do. I would
hosting
love
my
that.
own in-person event, just me to get Jena's book. So
I love that.
okay, share with me as we kind of have a couple other questions to like wrap up our time together. What do you feel like you love most about your profession? And on the other side, what has been one of the biggest challenges for you at the same time?
I think what I love most is that I get like there's a flexibility in my work, and how set up how I work. I love that because I just need that personally. But I would say even more than that, in the past maybe 2 years now, I've been at this for 8 years professionally. But in the past 2 years, I really found myself in what I create. So I think for a long time, even though I would say I connected to my work, I didn't connect as deeply as I do to it now. I have enough of my work that I can look back at it and see different connections that I could have never seen years ago. Why I always draw flowers, why I always like, there's all these different things. I'm like, I don't know. I just like to do that.
Yeah.
But I really think now a lot of that comes from like the idea of growth. And I just love to put them around women. And like, there's just different things that I have learned about my work by looking at my work, which is really, really interesting, like reflecting on it. And that's what I really love, like love, love, love. And it actually helps me to have a stronger voice and point of view as I share. But then on the flip side, what I don't love is I would say that I have to be accountable all the time. Sometimes I don't I just want to take a break, but it's like I have work to do. I have things I need to get done. I have people counting on me. I have, I can't just like close it up. Luckily, in the past year and a half, 2 years, I have hired and I do have a few people like part-time contractors that work for me. So I have people that help to hold up my hands while I'm trying to do the thing.
Yeah.
And that's obviously been a game changer to being able to take rest and to actually just make rest more of a part of just my life versus like waiting for the rest or waiting for the vacation. And so I would say that's the part that I probably struggle with the most is turning off. My mind is always like working, and it's just sometimes it's really hard for me to disconnect. That's why I think I loved creating murals last year, because I could just like paint and I didn't have to think. And even though it was still work, it was just like, no, somebody locks you in a room and tells you to make the pretty picture on the wall and you get to do it for a week straight. Go for it. So, that's my, my thoughts there.
Yeah, it is amazing that it truly like that double-edged sword when you have your own business of like, it gives me flexibility and I love it. And also like, if I'm not moving forward, it's all going to crumble.
Yeah, like too much flexibility, right? Like I can pretty much do whatever I want. So if I do that for too long,
Yep.
it'll go downhill.
Yeah, that's like literally like my struggle all the time is like
Mhm.
sometimes I miss the feeling of having somebody like over my shoulder to be like, hey, you need
Just
to get
telling
this
you.
done. But
Mhm.
then I also cringe at that at the same time because some days I'm like, I just want to go out and like garden and like nobody can tell me
Yep.
that I can't, you know? I can like take half a day to like go dig in the dirt and it's just always trying to strike that like happy medium and you know there's never a perfect balance but
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
okay, so you're loving murals right now. That sounds like that's a big like dream project for you. Is there anything else in the future that you hope that you get to do in regards to illustration, like a dream project?
Man. I have a couple of big dreams, but I think like I would love to do. I've already said one. I want to do like more children's books. That's an
Mhm.
area, and so like part of that is coming true right now. It's awesome, but I
Yes.
want to do even more. And I have all these, ideas inside of me now. So I'm like, okay, I gotta move on those. But I've always wanted to open like an arts center for kids that don't have like arts programming and funding in their schools.
Yeah.
That's something I've always wanted to do. And I'm kind of dreaming with what that looks like. I don't really know what that looks like, but I've been dreaming for so long that I'm like, okay, it's time to like actually start to figure this thing out and get it from just like an idea in my head, into like an outline and something,
Mhm.
something more than that. And then I would say the other thing that I would love that I'm kind of tapping into with licensing is that I would love to have like a full collection of licensed products like for home, like home goods. I would love to like I love Justina Blakeney. She like had a huge and has multiple huge lines at multiple retailers. She's amazing. Like Magnolia. They have like a in-store thing at Target forever. They're never going anywhere.
Yeah.
But like something like that would be a dream. And honestly, if it doesn't happen in this huge way with this huge retailer, I'll probably end up just doing it myself because that's just how I always am.
Yeah.
That's how I started my online shop. That's how I've started. And I really think that a lot of the opportunities that have come to me have come because I've just started doing things myself. If I
Mhm.
didn't see the item on the shelf or I didn't see anyone selling it, I started making it.
Yep.
And then over time, people started looking. And, I think that it'll be a dream for now. And in the future, it will happen. I know it will happen because I'm just going to do it if it doesn't. So,
Yeah. No, that's such a great mentality to have. Like if I don't see it, I'm going to do it. Like I'm going to take initiative. I'm going to bring it to
mhm,
life. I absolutely love your idea of getting art supplies to schools that don't have them.
mhm,
I had a friend of mine tell me recently that her sister was teaching in Chicago public schools and she asked the kids in that classroom who has a book in their house at home
mhm,
and not a single one, not a
mhm.
book, you
Wow.
know? And so
Mhm,
I'm like, oh man, like my heart of what I feel so blessed by having
yeah.
art
Yeah.
supplies like as a kid to realize like
Mhm,
that potential. So that I think is going to be very special and
yeah.
I totally get what you mean of like I've had it in my head for so long. Oh, the constant
Yeah.
struggle of
Yep.
like taking the steps. All right, got to take the steps, got to bring this to life. But I'm glad you put all those things out there because if there's like anybody listening who has a connection to
Yeah.
home goods or
Right.
there's
Right.
something so powerful about like putting it out there. Like
Oh,
I'm going to
absolutely.
say like this is what I'm shooting for. These are like my dreams and
Mhm.
you never know who's going to be able to like meet you there
Absolutely.
because they heard something
Absolutely.
somewhere. So, all right. Well, I feel like I have a very good idea of like what your intentions are for the rest of the year. Obviously, being able to launch this amazing book, your first children's book. Is there
Yes.
anything else that you're hoping to accomplish this year? Anything that you had written down in like your personal goals? It could be personal or business. Like, what are your intentions for
Yeah, I think
2022?
I think like personally it's really just creating more of a lifestyle that is restful and not just all about work. Absolutely. That's like 100% what I need to do this year. Like especially after this book, I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to sleep for a good week.
Yep.
But more rest is obviously a lot more than just sleep. It's also really important for how I schedule myself and, how much work I take on and all of that. And then how I show up in my relationships and in my family and in my life. But I think professionally, I really want to kind of get out of this, we talked about like this rat race. I really just want to get back to like how it was when I started. And it was just like, I was creating and I was sharing and I wasn't caring about all of the extra, if it was on the algorithm right or whatever, I don't care. But then also just in my work, just exploring more. I would love to explore more in the kids realm with books I already talked about, but also with kids apparel and just like products around with kids and illustration. So that's kind of an area where I'm like looking at right now and playing with right now, and we'll see. I always say that I'm going to hope that it happens, but this year I'm like, no, we need to make it happen this year. So you'll see it this year. So
we'll see it this year. I don't know. I can see like Spoonful of Faith over like a retail shop, you know? The name,
put it out there for
but like
me.
the name for a shop would be so cute too. Like the possibilities are limitless. Well, that is so exciting. Tell all of our listeners where they can find you. So website, social media channels, and all of that great stuff.
Yeah. So you can find me at spoonfuloffaith.com. We're on Instagram at A Spoonful of Faith. Facebook, Spoonful of Faith. Everywhere, Spoonful of Faith, pretty much. So just look us up on our website. You'll find all the links to everywhere. So you'll be good.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much, Jena, for spending your time with us today. And this has been so fun.
Yeah, it really has. Thank you so much. I hope that it encourages and just inspires whoever's listening. So. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, guys, don't forget to take a screenshot when you're listening. Tag Jena at A Spoonful of Faith on Instagram. Tag us to let us know that you're listening. We love hearing back from you guys. Like, we know you guys are listening. We can see the stats. We just like need that like verbal validation, Let us know that you're out there. And if you guys have any questions for us, you can go to bizbirthdaybash.com where you can click on our Q&K option at the footer of the website to drop your questions that you have, that Cami and I are always willing to listen to on our Q&Ks. And by the way, I guess I forgot to say at the beginning, Cami's still on her maternity leave right now. But I think everyone probably picked up on that because she's like not here recording with us today. But we're excited for her to come back and start recording again eventually. But for now, I get to have our special one-on-one time with amazing guests like Jena. So I hope you have a wonderful week. I will be looking for your book in stores when it comes out. I really am going to go find it in person.
Yes,
I promise.
Please do. And tag me. I would love that.
Okay. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey guys, we just wanted to hop in and talk about one of our amazing resources, the A to Z directory. All of us have thought at some point, how did she do that or how did she make that? And maybe you don't know where to start or how the heck to produce this amazing product you've dreamt up.
Well, the A to Z directory is the missing puzzle piece in your biz, you guys, seriously. So it's built in the form of a yearly membership, and it's your one-stop shop for finding suppliers and vendors for all the things. Literally where to print everything from custom invitations, greeting cards, mugs, koozies, acrylic printing, letterpress, custom ribbon. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And it literally goes from A to Z. From acrylic printers to zipper pouches, we have it in the A to Z directory.
We want to help all of you search less and create more with this list of 300 plus vendors and suppliers. Don't worry, they're very organized. It's not going to be overwhelming and confusing when you join. And this membership also includes access to a private Facebook community. It's incredibly active and involved. And if you need a question answered fast, that is definitely the place to go.
Yeah, our Facebook group really is the best. You guys, everyone is so helpful in there. And we're in there too, answering questions you guys might have. So it's a great way to get access to us and ask us things without sliding into our DMs. So we're more likely to answer you in the Facebook group, just saying. Anyway, also in the Facebook group, this is new for 2020 and we're really excited about it. We are hosting monthly Power Hour Q&A sessions that are live, and these are only available to our A to Z directory members. So you can hop in with us live and ask us all your burning questions in real time and just hang out with us every month. And we do these at different times so you can actually be there live, and the replays are always available in the Facebook group for members.
This resource is priced at $147 a year, which honestly is extremely affordable and is full of so many benefits, such as exclusive vendor coupons for members only. And we would love to have you guys join. Seriously, it's kind of like our family and our tribe. So visit bizbirthdaybash.com/directory to sign up today and use coupon code podcast2020 to receive $20 off your first year. That's podcast, all caps, 2020 for $20 off your first year.
We can't wait to see you in the Facebook group.